Derek had never seen anything like it. The grand hall was filled with the sound of hushed whispers as guests from all corners of the galaxy mingled, their conversations blending with the soft hum of advanced technology. The night was meant to be a celebration, a gala to honor the Vaetari Queen, whose people had been allies to humanity for decades. Yet, as Derek stepped into the room, his heart skipped a beat. The Vaetari were a majestic species unlike anything humans had ever encountered, and the Queen herself, she was a figure of strength, beauty, and mystery, standing at the center of it all. Derek was a human diplomat, accustomed to dealing with a wide range of species, from the cold and calculating Zixel to the fiercely independent Zandari. But none of them could hold a candle to the Queen of the Vaetari. Her presence was commanding, her grace undeniable. She stood tall, her physique radiating power, and her eyes glowed with an intensity that seemed to pierce through everything. Derek couldn't help but notice how she moved. There was a fluidity to her steps that seemed unnatural, yet entirely graceful. It was as if the very air around her bent to her will. The Vaetari people had a reputation for their incredible strength, and their queen was no different. Rumors of her physical prowess were well known across the galaxy. Some said she could lift 10 times her body weight with ease. Others spoke of her lightning-fast reflexes, her ability to outthink and outmaneuver any opponent. But there was more to the Queen than just her physical strength. She was a leader, a diplomat, and a symbol of the Vaetari people's resilience. Her intelligence and strategic mind were legendary, and humanity had been fortunate to forge an alliance with her people. Derek knew his mission here tonight was important. The treaty negotiations were critical to maintaining peace between their worlds. Humanity needed the Vaetari's resources, and the Vaetari needed the humans' technology. It was a fragile alliance, one that could easily fall apart if either side felt betrayed. Derek had been chosen to represent humanity, to navigate the delicate balance of diplomacy that would ensure the treaty was signed and the alliance remained intact. As he made his way through the room, shaking hands with representatives from various species, Derek couldn't help but feel out of place. The Vaetari were so different from humans. Taller, stronger, and their technology far surpassed anything humanity had developed. Yet, despite the differences, Derek had heard that the Queen held a special respect for humans. She valued their ingenuity and determination. That thought gave him some comfort as he approached the group gathered around the Queen. The moment Derek laid eyes on her, he froze. He was standing by a pillar, speaking softly with a few high-ranking officials from her court. The dim light of the room seemed to accentuate her features, casting an almost ethereal glow around her. She was unlike any ruler Derek had ever met. There was an elegance to her presence, but also an undeniable strength. Her eyes, a bright shade of violet, seemed to shift and change with the light, constantly shifting between calm and intense. As she laughed, the sound was deep and soothing, yet there was something about it that made the air around her crackle with energy. Derek found himself mesmerized by her. He had heard the stories, of course. He had heard of her beauty and strength, but none of the rumors had prepared him for the sheer presence of the Queen herself. She was like nothing he had ever seen before. The strength of her physique was visible, even beneath the regal robes she wore. She stood with a kind of poise that Derek couldn't help but admire. Her posture straight, her shoulders broad, yet graceful. In a moment of awe, Derek realized he had been staring at the Queen for longer than was socially acceptable. He quickly cleared his throat, hoping no one had noticed. But just as he was about to turn away, the Queen's gaze locked onto his. For a split second, the entire room seemed to disappear. All the sounds, the chatter, the movement, it all faded into the background. There was only Derek and the Queen standing across from each other, their eyes meeting in a moment of mutual recognition. Derek could feel his heart racing in his chest, his mind racing for something to say. The Queen smiled, a small but knowing smile that made Derek feel both uneasy and intrigued. She motioned for him to approach, and without thinking, he obeyed. As he walked toward her, he felt as though the ground beneath him had shifted. The air seemed to thicken, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had prepared for this meeting for weeks, studying everything he could about the Vaetari and their queen. But now, standing before her, he realized just how little he actually knew. "Derek, isn't it?" The queen's voice was smooth and melodic, like a song that was both familiar and foreign. "Nyx, I've heard much about you." Her words sent a chill down Derek's spine. The queen was known for her intelligence, and it was clear she was already sizing him up, trying to gauge who he was, what he was capable of. The way she spoke made it feel as if every word held a deeper meaning. Derek nodded, trying to keep his composure. "Yes, Your Majesty," he replied, his voice steady despite the nerves building inside him. "It's an honor to meet you." "An honor?" she repeated, her smile widening ever so slightly. "I find that most people are either intimidated by me or intrigued by me. Tell me, Derek, which one are you?" Derek opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form the words, his gaze was drawn once again to the queen's physique. She was standing tall, her posture perfect, and Derek couldn't help but be struck by how strong she looked. Her shoulders were broad and muscular, her arms sculpted from years of training. Even the way she stood, so effortlessly powerful, was enough to make him feel small in comparison. He couldn't stop himself. "Your physique is impressive," he said without really thinking. For a moment, there was silence. The queen's expression didn't change, but there was a glint in her eyes. Derek felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. Had he said the wrong thing? He had meant it as a compliment, but now it felt like he had said something inappropriate. To his surprise, the queen's smile deepened. "You think so?" she asked, her voice low, almost teasing. "Would you like to see it up close?" His mind went blank. The queen's words echoed in his ears, and for a moment, he wasn't sure if he had heard her correctly. Was she joking? Was this some kind of test? The air around them seemed to grow heavier, and Derek felt the eyes of everyone in the room on him. He couldn't tell if they were watching out of curiosity, amusement, or something else entirely. The queen took a step closer, her presence suddenly overwhelming. Derek could feel the heat of her body, the energy radiating from her. Her gaze was unwavering, as if she were waiting for him to respond. But all Derek could do was stand there, rooted to the spot, unsure of what to say or do next. "Don't worry," the queen added, her voice soft but commanding. "I won't bite." Her eyes sparkled with mischief, but there was something more in them. Something that Derek couldn't quite place. Was it an invitation? A challenge? Or something else entirely? Derek finally managed to find his voice, though it sounded uncertain, even to him. I didn't mean to offend you. I was simply..." He trailed off, unsure of how to explain himself. The queen's smile softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that was both reassuring and intimidating. "It's all right, Derek," she said. "You've been honest, and I appreciate that. But I must warn you, my people value strength and courage above all else. If you're going to stand in my presence, you must be willing to face the challenge, and that challenge may not always be what you expect." With that, the queen turned and walked away, leaving Derek standing in the center of the room, his mind racing. What had just happened? Had he made a fool of himself, or had he just stepped into something much bigger than he had ever imagined? As he watched the queen disappear into the crowd, Derek knew one thing for certain. This encounter was only the beginning. The air felt thick with tension as Derek stood there, his thoughts racing. The Vaetari queen had just asked him a question that had frozen him in his tracks, and now, as she walked away with a confident grace, Derek couldn't help but feel as if he had just been thrown into the deep end. His heart was pounding in his chest as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Had she truly meant her words, or was she simply testing him, gauging his response to see if he was worthy of the respect the Vaetari people gave him as their ally. Derek's mind was spinning, but there was one thing he couldn't deny. The Queen had managed to make him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. As he made his way back to his seat, Derek tried to shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in his stomach. He had come here to negotiate, to ensure that humanity's alliance with the Vaetari remained strong, but in this moment he wasn't sure whether he was dealing with a simple diplomatic meeting or something far more complex. The night went on, but Derek found it hard to focus on the conversations around him. Every now and then, his eyes would drift toward the Queen, who was still at the center of attention. She seemed to glide through the room, commanding respect without saying a word. Her presence was undeniable, her strength radiating from every movement, and yet there was something about her that seemed to draw people in, something almost magnetic. Derek had heard the stories about the Queen's power. The Vaetari were known for their incredible strength, and the Queen was no exception. She had led her people through countless battles, her strategies and tactics legendary across the galaxy. But what struck Derek most was the way she held herself. There was an elegance to her, a balance between power and grace that he couldn't quite put his finger on. It wasn't just her physical strength that commanded attention. It was her mind. The Queen was not just a ruler. She was a master strategist. She had been at the forefront of her people's rise to power, and it was clear that she didn't just rely on her physical capabilities to command her subjects. She understood the intricacies of diplomacy, the art of negotiation, and the delicate balance of power. Derek had always prided himself on his ability to navigate these complex situations, but now, standing before the Queen, he felt like a novice in comparison. The night continued, but the weight of the encounter hung over Derek like a shadow. He couldn't shake the feeling that the Queen's question had been more than just a playful remark. There was something in the way she had looked at him, something in the way she had smiled. It was as if she had been waiting for him to say the wrong thing, to slip up in some way that would reveal his true nature. Derek wasn't sure whether to be intimidated or intrigued by her. Hours later, the gala began to wind down. The guests were starting to filter out of the grand hall, their laughter and conversation fading into the distance. Derek had nearly convinced himself that the moment with the Queen had been nothing more than a fleeting exchange, something that he could forget as soon as he left the event. But just as he was about to slip away into the crowd, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning around, he was met with the Queen's piercing violet eyes. She was standing there, her posture as regal as ever, but there was something softer in her gaze now. Her smile, too, was more gentle, though it still held that same air of mystery. "Derek," she said, her voice low but clear, "I must speak with you." Derek's breath caught in his throat, his heart pounding in his chest once again. He nodded, trying to keep his composure despite the sudden rush of anxiety. "Of course, Your Majesty," he replied, his voice steady, though he could feel the tension building within him. The Queen led him away from the bustling crowd, guiding him down a narrow hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. The soft glow of the lighting illuminated their path, casting long shadows on the walls. The further they walked, the quieter it became, until the noise of the gala was nothing but a distant murmur. When they finally reached a secluded room, the Queen turned to face him. The door clicked shut behind them, and for the first time that night, Derek felt truly alone with her. His mind raced, wondering what she wanted, why she had sought him out in private. "I've been watching you, Derek," the Queen began, her voice calm but authoritative. "Not just tonight, but since we first met. I've seen your interactions with the other diplomats, your attempts to navigate our conversations. You're clever, but you're also predictable." Derek swallowed hard. He hadn't expected her to be so direct, so blunt. But there was no mistaking the truth in her words. He had spent years learning the art of diplomacy, studying the behavior of other species, but he had never encountered someone like the Queen before. She saw through him in a way that made him feel vulnerable, exposed. "I've had to deal with many humans, Derek," she continued, her eyes never leaving his. "Some are driven by power, others by greed. But you're different? You're driven by something else, something I can't quite understand. And that's why I need to know more." Derek was taken aback by her words. He had always seen himself as a simple diplomat, a negotiator working for the good of humanity. But the Queen saw something in him that he hadn't recognized in himself. She saw a depth that went beyond the surface, beyond the politics and the power struggles. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in his mind, "I'm here to do what's best for my people, just as you are for yours. Our alliance is fragile, and I'm doing everything I can to ensure that it remains strong." The Queen's gaze softened, but there was no mistaking the challenge in her eyes. "I'm sure that's true," she replied. "But I've dealt with enough diplomats to know when someone is holding back, and you, Derek, are holding back." "You're not being honest with me. Not fully, anyway." Derek's heart skipped a beat. The Queen wasn't just asking about the treaty or the negotiations. She was asking about him, about his motivations, his desires. And for the first time in a long time, Derek felt the weight of his own uncertainty pressing down on him. He had spent years trying to keep his emotions in check, to stay focused on the task at hand. But in the presence of the Queen, everything seemed to shift. "What do you want from me, Your Majesty?" Derek asked, his voice low, a mix of curiosity and caution in his tone. "What is it that you're really asking for?" The Queen studied him for a long moment, her gaze intense, almost penetrating. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I'm asking for you to show me who you truly are. I'm asking for you to stop hiding behind the veil of diplomacy and show me your true self. I want to know what drives you, what makes you different from the others who have come before you." Derek stood there, caught in the moment. The Queen wasn't just testing his diplomatic skills, she was testing his character, his very essence. And in that moment, Derek realized that the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. This wasn't just about a treaty. This was about something far deeper. A challenge of trust, of vulnerability, and of what it meant to truly connect with another being. The Queen took a step closer, her presence overwhelming in its intensity. "I've seen strength in you, Derek," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But I've also seen fear. And I wonder, do you have the courage to face that fear? To step into the unknown and trust me?" Derek's mind raced. He had spent his life navigating the complexities of diplomacy, but this was something entirely different. This was not about politics. This was about something raw, something real. And for the first time, Derek wasn't sure whether he was ready for what the Queen was offering. But deep down, he knew that there was only one way forward. With a steady breath, Derek looked the Queen in the eye, his voice firm. "I'm ready, Your Majesty," he said. "I'm ready to face whatever comes next." The Queen smiled, a small but knowing smile, and in that moment, Derek knew that whatever challenge lay ahead, it would change everything. The days following his encounter with the Queen had been a blur. Derek had spent countless hours going over the events in his mind, trying to understand what had just happened. The Queen's words echoed in his thoughts, and he couldn't escape the weight of the challenge she had presented him. For the first time in a long while, he felt as though he was standing on the edge of something unknown, something that could change everything. The Queen had seen through him in a way no one else ever had. She had challenged him to be more than just a diplomat, more than just a negotiator. She had asked him to be real, to show her who he truly was. Derek had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but this was different. This wasn't about making a deal or winning over an opponent. This was about trust, vulnerability, and the courage to face his own fears. Derek had always prided himself on his ability to stay composed, to maintain control over his emotions. But standing in the presence of the Queen, he had been forced to confront feelings he had long buried. He had always believed that strength came from keeping emotions in check, from hiding his true self behind a mask of diplomacy. But now, he wasn't so sure. The Queen had shown him a different kind of strength, one that came from being open, from embracing vulnerability instead of hiding it. She had made it clear that true strength wasn't just about power or control. It was about courage and honesty. And as Derek reflected on their conversation, he realized that he had been holding back in ways he hadn't even understood. The next time he met the Queen, it was in a private setting, away from the prying eyes of the diplomatic entourage. Derek had been summoned to a secluded courtyard within the Vitari Palace, a quiet place filled with the soft sound of running water and the rustle of leaves in the wind. The atmosphere was peaceful, almost serene, in stark contrast to the high-stakes negotiations that had dominated the past few days. The Queen was already waiting for him, standing near a stone fountain. The soft glow of the setting sun bathed her in a warm light, highlighting her features and casting a gentle glow on her skin. She turned as Derek approached, her violet eyes meeting his with the same intensity that had captivated him the first time they met. "Derek," she said, her voice calm but with an edge of something deeper, something that made Derek's heart beat faster. "I'm glad you came." Derek nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "Of course, Your Majesty. You requested my presence." The Queen smiled, a small but knowing smile. "Yes, I did. But there's more to it than that. I wanted to speak with you, truly speak with you, away from the formality of the negotiations, away from the politics. I wanted to see who you are when the world isn't watching." Derek felt a sudden weight in his chest. The Queen wasn't just testing him in the way he had imagined. This was different. She wasn't looking for a diplomat or a negotiator. She was looking for the person beneath the title, beneath the polished exterior, and Derek wasn't sure he was ready to show her that person. But then he remembered the challenge she had given him, the challenge to be honest, to stop hiding behind the mask of diplomacy. She had seen something in him, something he hadn't even known was there. And now, it was time to face that part of himself. "I'm not sure what you're looking for, Your Majesty," Derek said, his voice uncertain. "I'm just a man, trying to do my job. I've spent my whole life in diplomacy trying to make the right choices for my people. But when it comes to everything else, I don't know if I have the answers you're looking for." The Queen studied him for a long moment, her eyes never leaving his. Then she spoke softly, but her words cut through the air like a knife. "You think I'm looking for answers, Derek? You think I'm looking for a perfect solution? No, what I'm looking for is someone who can be real with me. Someone who can look beyond the surface and see the truth of what lies beneath. I've seen leaders, diplomats, and warriors, but I've never seen anyone like you." Derek's heart skipped a beat. What was she saying? Was she complimenting him? Or was she simply trying to manipulate him, to get him to show his weakness? It was hard to tell, but the way she spoke, with such sincerity and understanding, made it clear that she wasn't playing games. She was trying to connect with him in a way that no one else had. "I'm not a leader, Your Majesty," Derek replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm just a man doing a job. I'm not here to fight for power or to play at being something I'm not. I'm just trying to do what's right for my people." The Queen took a step closer, her presence overwhelming in its intensity. "Then why do you hide, Derek? Why do you wear this mask of diplomacy, this shield that keeps everyone at a distance? You say you're just a man, but I see more in you." "I see someone who is capable of far more than you realize." Derek was taken aback by her words. He had never seen himself the way the Queen seemed to see him. To her, he wasn't just a diplomat or a negotiator. He was something more. But what was it? What was it that she saw in him that he couldn't see in himself? "I don't know what you want from me, Your Majesty," Derek said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm just trying to do my job. That's all I can do." The Queen smiled, but there was no mockery in her expression. I don't want anything from you, Derek. Not in the way you think. What I want is for you to understand that strength isn't about hiding who you are. It's about embracing it. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all, and standing tall in the face of everything that challenges you. Derek's breath caught in his throat. The Queen's words resonated deep within him. He had spent his life hiding behind a mask, behind the role of diplomat and negotiator. He had never allowed himself to show his true self, to let anyone see the fears and doubts that haunted him. But here, with the Queen, he felt something shift. For the first time, he felt the possibility of truly being himself, of stepping away from the mask and showing the person he had always kept hidden. I don't know how to do that, Your Majesty, Derek admitted, his voice soft but honest. I've spent so long trying to be something I'm not, trying to be someone I thought the world needed, but now, I'm not sure what's real anymore. The Queen's gaze softened, and for a moment, she seemed almost vulnerable. I understand, Derek, she said. I know what it's like to feel like you have to be something you're not. But true strength comes from within. It comes from being honest with yourself and with those around you. It comes from standing tall in the face of your fears, even when the world tries to tear you down. Derek looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time. The Queen wasn't just a powerful ruler, a leader of her people. She was someone who understood what it meant to struggle, to fight against the weight of expectations, and to face the harsh realities of life. And in that moment, Derek realized that she wasn't just offering him advice. She was offering him the chance to become something greater, something more than he had ever imagined. Thank you, Your Majesty, Derek said, his voice steady now. I think I understand. The Queen nodded, her eyes shining with something that could only be described as respect. Good. Because the journey ahead will not be easy, Derek. But if you can find the strength to be yourself, to face the truth of who you are, then you'll be ready for whatever comes next. And as Derek stood there facing the Queen, he felt something inside him shift. He wasn't sure what the future held. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it, to face himself, and to step into the unknown with courage. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Derek found himself standing at a crossroads, unsure of what path to take. The Queen's challenge had pushed him to the edge, forcing him to confront aspects of himself he had spent years avoiding. But now, with the weight of his decisions pressing down on him, he was more unsure than ever. The path ahead wasn't clear. The treaty negotiations were still ongoing, but the personal challenge the Queen had set before him felt far more important now. Derek had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this, moments of high-stakes diplomacy, moments where the fate of his people could be decided in the blink of an eye. He had been trained to think on his feet, to make decisions quickly, and to maintain control at all costs. But nothing had prepared him for this. This wasn't about negotiation or strategy. This was about something far more personal. The Queen had asked him to be real, to embrace his true self, and Derek wasn't sure if he was ready for that. The Queen had been patient, waiting for Derek to come to terms with his own fears and doubts. But as the days passed, the tension between them grew. The unspoken understanding was clear. She wasn't just testing him as a diplomat. She was testing him as a person, and Derek wasn't sure if he was capable of meeting that challenge. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a soft shade of pink, Derek found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the sprawling Vaetari Palace grounds. The courtyard below was quiet, the only sound being the distant chirping of alien birds. Derek leaned against the railing, his thoughts consumed by everything that had happened. He had come to this planet with a mission, to ensure that humanity's alliance with the Vaetari remained strong. But now he was starting to question whether that mission was really his true purpose here. Was he meant to be a diplomat? Or was he meant to confront something far deeper? Was his role in this galaxy simply to serve his people? Or was there something more he had to learn? Something more he had to give? His thoughts were interrupted when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see the Queen walking toward him, her silhouette outlined by the fading sunlight. There was a calmness about her, a quiet strength that seemed to radiate from her very being. She had always been confident, always in control. But in this moment, Derek saw something different. She wasn't just a ruler, she was a person, with fears and hopes and struggles of her own. "Derek," the Queen said, her voice soft but steady. "I've been watching you. I've seen the way you've been thinking, the way you've been questioning everything." Derek didn't respond at first. He didn't know what to say. The Queen had always been perceptive, but it felt as though she could see straight through him now, as though she knew exactly what was going on in his mind. "You're struggling, aren't you?" the Queen asked, her voice gentle but filled with understanding. "You're not sure if you can meet the challenge I've set before you." Derek sighed, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "I'm not sure what to do, Your Majesty. I came here with a purpose, but now I don't know what that purpose is anymore. Everything feels so uncertain. I thought I had everything figured out, but now it seems like everything is changing." The Queen stepped closer, her presence calming yet powerful. She didn't say anything at first, simply standing there, allowing Derek to speak. Finally, she spoke, her voice filled with both wisdom and compassion. "Derek, you've been focused on doing your job, on fulfilling your duties, for so long that you've forgotten what it means to truly live. You've been hiding behind your role, behind the mask of diplomacy. But that's not who you are. You are more than just a diplomat. You are a person with dreams, with fears, with hopes. And if you want to move forward, if you want to truly lead, you have to embrace all of that." Derek looked at her, his eyes searching hers for answers. "But what if I'm not ready? What if I fail?" The Queen smiled, a small but knowing smile. "Failure is part of the journey, Derek. It's not something to fear, it's something to learn from. You've already taken the first step by being honest with yourself. Now you have to take the next step. You have to decide what kind of leader you want to be, what kind of person you want to be, and that decision is yours alone." Derek took a deep breath, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always been so focused on the bigger picture, on the future of humanity and the alliance with the Vaetari, that he had forgotten to focus on himself. He had spent so long trying to live up to other people's expectations that he had never taken the time to ask himself what he truly wanted. The Queen was right. He couldn't keep running from the truth. He had to face it, no matter how difficult it was. And the truth was that he wasn't just a diplomat. He was a man with his own dreams, his own desires, and his own fears. "I don't know if I can do this," Derek said quietly, "but I want to try. I want to be more than just the man I've been." The Queen's smile softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's all anyone can ask for, Derek. To try. To be willing to face the unknown, even when it's scary. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But you do have to be willing to take the first step." Derek nodded, his heart feeling lighter than it had in days. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to face it. He wasn't going to hide behind the mask of diplomacy anymore. He was going to embrace the uncertainty, the fear, and the challenges that lay ahead. For the first time in a long while, Derek felt a sense of peace. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to have all the answers. He just had to be himself, and that was enough. The Queen stepped back, her gaze steady and unwavering. "The time for decisions is here, Derek. What kind of future do you want to create? What kind of leader do you want to be?" Derek looked out over the palace grounds, his thoughts clearer now than they had ever been. He thought about the alliance between humanity and the Vaetari, about the challenges they faced, and about the role he could play in shaping that future. But more than anything, he thought about the person he wanted to become. "I want to be a leader who leads with integrity, Derek said, his voice steady. "I want to be someone who isn't afraid to face the truth, no matter how difficult it is. I want to be someone who can bring people together, who can build something meaningful, something lasting." The Queen nodded, her eyes filled with approval. "Then you've already made the first step, Derek. The rest will come in time." Derek smiled, feeling a sense of clarity and purpose that he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew he was ready to face it. And with that, he took the first step into the unknown, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, honesty, and the strength to be true to himself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Derek and the Queen stood together, side by side, ready to face whatever came next.